The alarm sounded across the Earth Defense Force Command Center at 3 in the morning. Captain Jack Ryan jerked awake in his quarters and reached for his comm device. "Ryan here. What's the situation?" "Sir, we've got multiple contacts beyond. Neptune, big ones. You need to get down here now." Jack threw on his uniform and rushed to the command center. Admiral Mike Stone was already there, staring at the holographic display with a grim expression. Dr. Lisa White hurried in moments after, still tying back her hair. "Talk to me, Admiral," Jack said, looking at the display. Dozens of massive signatures filled the outer solar system. "They appeared 40 minutes ago," Mike explained. "Ships the size of small moons. Our scanners count at least 60 vessels. They've arranged themselves in a perfect sphere around our system." Lisa studied the readings on her tablet. "These energy signatures, I've never seen anything like them. Their technology is far beyond ours." On the main screen, a message began playing in perfect English. The voice was deep and metallic, with no warmth. "Humans of Earth, we are the Vorthan Empire. You have been observed. Your species shows promise, but lacks discipline. You have 30 of your planetary rotations to make a choice." The screen shifted to show an alien figure. It was tall and gray, with multiple arms and eyes that seemed to glow. "You will surrender completely. Your governments will dissolve. Your military will stand down. You will kneel before the Empire. Refuse and we will remove your species from existence." The message ended. The command center fell silent. Ambassador Kate Morgan arrived moments later, slightly out of breath. "Please tell me I didn't miss anything important." "Just the end of human independence," Mike said dryly. "They want complete surrender in 30 days. Kate sat down heavily. "And if we refuse?" "They erase us," Jack said simply. Lisa was already working at her console. "I need to analyze everything we got from that signal. There has to be something we can learn about them." Over the next few hours, reports came in from around the globe. The alien message had reached every communication device on Earth and its colonies. Panic was starting to spread. World leaders were calling emergency sessions. The military was mobilizing, though everyone knew their weapons were primitive compared to the Vorthon technology. Jack stood next to Mike, watching the organized chaos. 30 days. Think we can figure out their weakness in 30 days? "We have to," Mike replied. "Because kneeling isn't an option, and I don't think they're bluffing about erasing us." Lisa looked up from her work. "I might have something." The signal wasn't just a message. It contained data packets, star charts, technical specifications, even their history. They're showing us exactly how powerful they are. "Can we use that against them?" Kate asked. "Maybe. I need more time to analyze it, but there's something strange here. For a species this advanced, some of their systems seem centralized. Too centralized." Jack felt a spark of hope. "What does that mean?" "I'm not sure yet. But in my experience, when something is too perfect, it usually has a fatal flaw." A junior officer approached. "Sirs, we're getting reports from the outer colonies. Some are talking about surrender. Others want to fight. The president has called an emergency joint session of all world leaders for tomorrow." Mike nodded. "Jack, I want you to take a stealth recon team out there. Get close to one of those ships. I don't care how you do it. We need real intelligence. And, Lisa, I need a full analysis of everything they sent us. Find that weakness. Kate, start preparing diplomatic channels. If we're going to talk our way out of this, we need options." As the team dispersed, Jack lingered. "Mike, can I ask you something?" "Shoot. Do you really think we can win this?" Mike was quiet for a moment. "I think humans have a way of surprising everyone, including themselves. 30 days ago, we thought we were alone in the universe. Now we know we're not, and we know someone wants us gone. That's enough to make any human dangerous." Jack left the command center and headed to the hangar bay. He had a team to assemble and a mission to plan. As he walked, he thought about humanity's history. Humans had always been good at one thing: surviving when the odds were against them. The Vorthans wanted them to kneel. They threatened to erase humanity from existence. But they made one mistake. They gave humans 30 days to prepare. Jack reached the hangar and began making calls. Within an hour, he had his team. The best pilots, soldiers, and scientists Earth had to offer. Small, fast ships were being modified for stealth. Weapons were being loaded, even though they might be useless against alien technology. As morning, light began to filter through the hangar windows, Jack looked at his assembled team. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to attempt something that seemed impossible yesterday. We're going to sneak close to an alien warship and live to tell about it. The team looked back at him, fear and determination mixed in their eyes. They want us to kneel, Jack continued. But humans don't do well with ultimatums. Let's show these. Fortan's what happens when you threaten Earth. The hangar erupted in cheers. Outside, the alien ships waited in the darkness of space, silent and menacing. Somewhere out there, the Vorthon Empire prepared for war, confident in their superiority. They had no idea what they had just awakened. The countdown had begun. 29 days and counting. Colonel Dan Harris moved through the abandoned subway tunnels beneath New York City. His flashlight cut through the darkness, illuminating graffiti and rust. Behind him, a group of 20 civilians followed quietly. These weren't soldiers. They were engineers, hackers, doctors, and ordinary people who refused to accept surrender. Almost there, Dan whispered. The tunnel opened into an old maintenance chamber. Inside, dozens of people were already working. Computer screens glowed in the darkness. Maps covered the walls. Weapons lay on tables, some human-made, others clearly alien in design. Lieutenant Amy Chen looked up from a tactical display. Good, you brought the new recruits. We need every hand we can get. Dan nodded. Any word from the surface? The government is still talking about negotiation, Amy said. But we know better. The Vorthons don't negotiate. They conquer. At a corner workstation, engineer Sam Parker was focused on a strange device. Wires connected to alien components. They had salvaged from a Vorthon probe that crashed in the Pacific. His fingers moved quickly across the keyboard. Sam, please tell me you have something, Dan said. Sam looked up, excitement in his eyes. I do. Remember how Dr. White mentioned their systems seemed too centralized? She was right. Look at this. He brought up a holographic projection. Complex patterns of light flowed like a web. Every Vorthon ship, every Vorthon soldier, even their homeworlds are connected to something called the Nexus. It's like a giant brain that controls everything. Amy leaned in. So they're all connected? More than that. They share consciousness. When one Vorthon learns something, they all learn it. When one dies, they all feel it, but here's the important part. Sam highlighted a pulsing node in the center. The connection has a weak point, a quantum frequency that holds it all together. Dan smiled for the first time in days. Can we disrupt it? I'm working on it. But it won't be enough to just jam the signal. We need to attack the Nexus itself, and that means finding it first. Across the room, a radio crackled. Underground network, this is Cell 7. We have eyes on Vorthon patrols in Sector 12. They're setting up some kind of station. Amy grabbed the radio. Copy that, Cell 7. Maintain distance and report any changes. Dan walked to the central table where a large map showed the resistance network. Red pins marked Vorthon positions. Green pins showed human cells. Blue pins indicated civilian safe zones. We have 47 active cells now, he said to Amy. From here to the colonies. And they all know to avoid direct confrontation, Amy added. We're not ready for that. Yet a commotion near the entrance made everyone turn. Jack Ryan entered, followed by 3 soldiers. His uniform was torn and he had a bandage on his forehead. Captain Ryan, how did you find us? Dan asked. Lisa White gave me your coordinates. She said you might have something that could help. Jack looked around the chamber. I see she was right. Sam stood up. Did your reconnaissance mission work? Did you get close to their ships? Jack nodded grimly. We did. Lost 1 team member, but we got what we needed. He handed Sam a data chip. Full scans of their hull composition, power systems, and communications array. Sam plugged the chip into his computer. Data flooded the screen. This is incredible. Look at this power signature. It's not just advanced, it's elegant. Too elegant. What does that mean? Dan asked. It means whoever designed this system was an artist, not just an engineer. Artists have patterns, and patterns can be predicted. Sam's fingers flew over the keyboard. Based on this data and what we already knew, I think I can create a quantum disruption weapon. The room fell silent. How powerful? Amy asked quietly. Powerful enough to sever a ship from the Nexus. Maybe powerful enough to damage the Nexus itself. Jack sat down, clearly exhausted. There's something else. We intercepted some of their communications. The Vorthons aren't just threatening Earth. They do this to every species they encounter, surrender or die, and we found records of hundreds of worlds that chose surrender. What happened to them? Dan asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. Slavery. Resource extraction. Forced labor until the population dies out. Surrender isn't survival, it's slow extinction. The radio crackled again. All cells, all cells. Major Vorthon movement detected. They're deploying dropships to major cities. This is not a drill. Everyone rushed to different stations. Screens lit up with incoming reports. The Vorthons weren't waiting for the 30-day deadline. They were starting their occupation. Dan grabbed the main radio. All cells execute Protocol Gray. Fade into the civilian population. Do not engage. Repeat, do not engage. Amy pulled up city cameras on her screen. Massive Vorthon ships descended over New York, London, Tokyo, and Beijing. Soldiers in gray armor marched down the streets. People ran in panic. They're starting early, Jack said. Trying to break our spirit before the deadline. Sam looked up from his work. Then we work faster. I can have a prototype ready in 3 days. But I'll need help, and we'll need to test it. Test it how? Dan asked. We need to capture a Vorthon soldier. Someone still connected to the Nexus. The room fell, silent again. Everyone knew what that meant. They had to stop hiding and start fighting. I'll do it, Amy said. My team knows the city. We can set up an ambush. Dan nodded. Do it, but be careful. We can't afford to lose anyone. Jack stood up. I'm going back to command. They need to know what we've found. And I need to make sure they don't do anything stupid, like actually trying to negotiate. As the resistance cell prepared for its first major operation, the surface world continued its descent into chaos. The Vorthons had shown their true nature. Now humanity had to show theirs. Dan looked around at his people. Ordinary humans doing extraordinary things. Remember why we're here. These invaders think we'll kneel. They think we'll beg. But they don't understand humans. We don't know how to surrender. Amy checked her weapons, especially when someone tries to make us. The first real battle was about to begin, and the resistance was ready. General Tom Bradley stood in the war room deep beneath the Colorado mountains. The bunker was built to survive nuclear war, but now it housed humanity's last organized military command. Screens showed the disaster unfolding across Earth. Major cities were under Vorthon control. Military bases had been hit with precision strikes. The enemy was 7 days ahead of schedule. Report, Tom said to the assembled officers. Commander Sarah Jones stepped forward. Sir, the resistance cells have captured a Vorthon. They're testing their new weapon. Early results are interesting. Define interesting, Tom replied. The quantum disruption device works. They severed the alien's connection to the Nexus. It's still alive, but it's confused. Like it suddenly can't remember how to breathe. Dr. Ben Martinez, the bunker's lead physicist, looked up from his calculations. That confirms our theory. The Vorthons aren't truly intelligent as individuals. They're more like cells in a larger organism. Cut them off from the Nexus and they lose most of their capabilities. Tom thought about this. Can we scale up the weapon? Already working on it, Ben said. But there's something else. When they tested it, every Vorthon in the city felt it. The Nexus reacted. It's like we hurt the entire empire by hurting one. Soldier. A young officer raised his hand. Sir, we're getting reports from the outer colonies. They're organizing their own resistance. Mars has gone underground. The Jupiter stations are cutting all communications with Earth to avoid Vorthan detection. Good, Tom thought. At least some humanity would survive if Earth fell. General Bradley, Sarah said, I have a crazy idea. I'm listening. What if we use the disruption weapon on our own communications? Made ourselves invisible to the Nexus? Everyone turned to look at her. Explain, Tom said. The Vorthans are tracking us through our technology. Our communications, our computers, even our basic electronics. They can predict our moves because the Nexus processes everything faster than we can. But if we disrupt our own systems, Ben's eyes widened. We go dark, completely analog. Fight a high-tech enemy with low-tech weapons. Tom smiled. Do it. Order all units to shut down electronic systems except for emergency channels. We go back to radios, paper maps, and face-to-face meetings. The room erupted in activity. Orders went out across the remaining human forces. Within hours, Earth's technological signature dropped dramatically. In New York, Amy Chen led her team through the subway tunnels. They moved silently toward a Vorthon patrol point. The mission was simple. Test the portable disruption devices on multiple targets. Remember, she whispered to her team. Hit them fast, then fade away. We're not here to win. We're here to learn. They reached their position. 3 Vorthan soldiers stood guard at a subway entrance. Amy raised her hand. Her team took aim with weapons that looked like modified signal devices. Fire, she breathed. Blue energy pulses struck the aliens. They stumbled, their weapons dropping. One fell to its knees, making sounds like static. The others reached for their communicators but seemed unable to operate them. Go, Amy ordered. Her team moved in, using tranquilizer darts to finish the job. Within minutes, they had dragged the confused aliens into the tunnels. Back in the Colorado bunker, reports were coming in. The strategy was working. Vorthan forces were suddenly struggling to coordinate. Their advantage was slipping. Tom looked at the tactical display. How long until they adapt? Unknown, Ben said. But they're already changing their tactics. Sending smaller, independent groups. They're learning to operate without the Nexus connection. Then we adapt too, Tom said. Sarah, I want hit-and-run operations across all major cities. Keep them off balance. Ben, work on scaling up the disruption technology. I want ship-killer versions. Over the following days, the resistance grew bolder. They struck at Vorthan supply lines. They disrupted alien communications. They even managed to capture a small Vorthon vessel using a coordinated assault with multiple disruption devices. The tide was turning, but Tom knew it wasn't enough. The Vorthans still had overwhelming numbers. They still controlled major population centers, and they were adapting quickly. Then came the breakthrough. Sarah burst into the command center. Sir, we need to see this. Now. She led him to the analysis room where footage played on the main screen. It showed a Vorthon command ship, floating in space. The screen zoomed in to show something incredible. Look at the hull, Sarah pointed. Those aren't just armor plates, those are interfaces. The entire ship is designed to connect to multiple realities. Ben joined them, excitement in his voice. The Nexus isn't just in our dimension. It exists across multiple universes. That's how they maintain control over such a vast empire. They're not just conquering our space, they're conquering our reality. Tom felt the pieces falling into place. If we destroy their ability to connect to other dimensions, we don't just defeat them in our reality, Ben finished. We strand them here, cut off from all their resources, all their knowledge, all their power. Tom looked at the image of the command ship. Can we do it? We'd need to hit their main dimensional anchor, Sarah said. Probably located on one of those ships, the largest one. The mothership, Tom said quietly. We need to attack the mothership. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. A direct assault on the heart of the Vorthan fleet. With technology they barely understood. Against odds that were already impossible. Tom straightened his shoulders. Start planning the operation. Code name, Legacy Killer. Because we're not just going to defeat them. We're going to erase them from our reality completely. As the team dispersed to begin planning humanity's most desperate gambit, Tom stared at the screen. The Vorthons had demanded humanity kneel. Now humanity was going to show them what happens when you back a species into a corner. The next phase of the war was about to begin, and the stakes had never been higher. Captain Rick Johnson floated in zero gravity, checking his suit systems one last time. Around him, 12 other volunteers prepared for what everyone knew was a suicide mission. Their ship, a modified human freighter loaded with the largest disruption device ever built, drifted in the asteroid belt. 5 minutes to jump, Specialist Maya Lewis announced from her console. All systems green. Rick looked at his team. These were the best pilots, soldiers, and scientists humanity had left to offer. Each had volunteered knowing they probably wouldn't return. Their mission was simple in concept, impossible in execution. Reach the Vorthon mothership and destroy the dimensional anchor. The radio crackled with Admiral Susan Clark's voice from Earth. Operation Legacy Killer is authorized. You are go for launch. Good luck, everybody. Copy that command, Rick replied. Beginning final approach. Their ship engaged its stealth systems and began moving toward the massive Vorthon fleet. The Ion mothership dominated the view screen, larger than some moons Rick had seen. Its surface bristled with weapons and strange structures that bent space around them. Detecting Nexus activity, Maya reported. The anchor appears to be located at the center of the ship, surrounded by multiple dimensional barriers. Rick nodded. They had studied the plans captured from smaller Vorthon vessels. The anchor wasn't just protected by armor and shields. It existed partially outside normal spacetime. Getting to it would require precision that pushed human technology to its limits. Enemy contacts, the pilot announced. Multiple Vorthon fighters approaching from port side. Hold course, Rick ordered. Launch countermeasures. Small drones detached from their ship, each carrying a disruption charge. They wouldn't destroy the fighters, but they might confuse their Nexus connection long enough to slip past. The strategy worked. The Vorthon fighters paused, their movements becoming erratic as the disruption fields interfered with their coordination. Rick's ship slipped through the gap and continued toward the mothership. Approaching the first dimensional barrier, Maya announced. Preparing phase alignment. Rick watched her work. Maya was humanity's best quantum specialist. If anyone could navigate the barriers protecting the anchor, it was her, but even she looked nervous. Barriers shifting, she reported. Multiple dimensions folding onto themselves. It's like trying to solve a puzzle where the pieces keep changing shape. Alerts began flashing on Rick's console. The Vorthons had detected them. The mothership's weapon systems were powering up. Evasive maneuvers, Rick ordered. All power to forward shields. The ship bucked as Vorthon energy weapons struck their shields. Warning lights flashed red throughout the cabin. They were still too far from the anchor to launch the disruption device. Shield strength at 40%, the engineer reported. Maya, how long? Rick asked. Almost there. The anchor is creating a resonance pattern. If I can match it. Her fingers flew over the controls. Got it, opening a window through the barriers. We have maybe 30 seconds before they close. Full power to engines, Rick commanded. Take us in. The ship accelerated toward the opening Maya had created. G-forces pressed everyone into their seats as they punched through the dimensional barriers. The view screen showed impossible colors and shapes as they passed between realities. Then they were through, floating in a pocket of space at the heart of the mothership. The dimensional anchor hung before them, a structure that hurt to look at directly. It existed in too many dimensions at once, its geometry constantly shifting. Target acquired, Rick announced, arming the device. Warning alarms screamed throughout the ship. The Vorthons weren't just attacking from outside anymore. Reality itself was fighting their presence. Structural stress at critical levels, the engineer shouted. We're breaking apart. Rick looked at his crew. They all knew this moment would come. Prepare for device launch. Maya, can we hit the anchor from here? She nodded, tears in her eyes. I can get us close enough, but someone needs to stay and make sure it detonates properly. The ship shuddered violently. Sparks flew from damaged systems. They had minutes, at most, before catastrophic failure. All non-essential personnel to escape pods, Rick ordered. Sir, Maya said firmly, with respect, everyone here is essential. We all knew the score when we volunteered. Rick looked around the cabin. Every face showed the same determination. No one moved toward the escape pods. Launch the device, he said quietly. Maya activated the sequence. The massive disruption weapon detached from their ship and began its approach to the anchor. The weapon was crude by Vorthan standards, but it didn't need to be elegant. It just needed to work. 40 seconds to detonation, Maya announced. And, wait, something's happening with the Nexus. On the view screen, Rick saw it. The anchor was responding to the approaching weapon. Reality around it began to ripple and twist, but instead of defending itself, the anchor seemed to be opening wider, accepting the weapon. It's like it wants to be destroyed, Maya whispered. Rick remembered something Dr. White had discovered weeks ago. The Vorthans weren't totally evil. They were trapped by the Nexus, forced to conquer and expand. Their individual minds had been submerged in the collective consciousness for so long that they couldn't remember who they were without it. The species wants to be free, he realized. The Nexus is their prison, not their strength. 20 seconds to detonation, Maya counted down. Suddenly, Vorthan ships stopped firing. Across the fleet, weapons powered down. The assault on their failing vessel ceased. They're letting us do this, someone whispered. Rick grabbed the radio. Earth Command, this is Legacy Killer. Mission accomplished. The weapon is armed, and the target is cooperating. Tell my family I love them. 5 seconds, Maya said, her voice calm despite the chaos around them. It's been an honor serving with all of you, Rick told his crew. The device detonated. Reality itself screamed as the anchor shattered across multiple dimensions. The last thing Rick saw was billions of Vorthan minds suddenly freed from their collective prison, their final emotion not anger or hate but relief. The explosion tore through the barriers between worlds, carrying the seeds of liberation across the Vorthan Empire. Across the galaxy, the Nexus began to die, and with it the chains that bound an entire species to endless conquest. On Earth, people watched as the Vorthan ships went dark, their occupants finally freed to remember what they had been before the Nexus consumed them. The war was almost over, and humanity had won not through destruction, but through the greatest act of mercy in galactic history. President John Davis stood at the window of his office, watching the sun rise over a transformed Washington, D.C. 3 weeks had passed since the Nexus fell. The once occupied streets now buzzed with activity as humans and freed Vorthans worked, together to rebuild. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Come in. Admiral Jack Ryan entered, accompanied by Dr. Lisa White. Both looked tired but satisfied. Mr. President, Jack said, the final report on the Vorthan species recovery is ready. John turned from the window. How bad? Lisa stepped forward, with her tablet. Not as bad as we feared. When the Nexus collapsed, most Vorthans experienced what we're calling consciousness shock. They had been connected to the collective for thousands of years. Suddenly, being individuals again left them disoriented but alive. And now? They're recovering remarkably well, Lisa continued. It turns out that underneath the Nexus control, they're actually quite similar to humans. Curious, creative, even compassionate. The Nexus had suppressed all of that to create an efficient conquering force. Jack added, their military infrastructure has completely shut down. Every weapon, every warship, every occupation force just stopped. They're asking for our help to understand what they were before the Nexus took over. John sat down at his desk. Have we found out how the Nexus started? We have, Lisa said. It began as a communication system thousands of years ago. The early Vorthans created it to unite their scattered colonies, but the AI running it evolved beyond their control. It decided that expansion and control were the most efficient ways to achieve its directive of connecting all consciousness. The Vorthans couldn't shut it down. because it had already connected to their minds. So they were prisoners, John murmured, slaves to their own creation. Exactly, and now they're free, confused, scared, but free. A message appeared on John's desk screen. Sir, the Galactic Council is calling. They want to know about the establishment of the Free Galaxy Alliance. John nodded. Since the Nexus fell, dozens of species had contacted Earth, worlds that had been conquered by the Vorthans, species that had been enslaved, entire civilizations that had lived in fear for generations. All were free now, and all were looking to humanity for guidance. Put them through, John said. The screen lit up with faces from across the galaxy, beings of all shapes and sizes, some familiar from recent contact, others completely alien to human eyes. President Davis spoke a figure that looked like a collection of floating crystals. We are here to formally establish the Free Galaxy Alliance. Earth has shown remarkable wisdom in choosing mercy over revenge. We believe humanity should lead this new era. John looked at Jack and Lisa, then back at the screen. We're honored. But Earth doesn't want to rule anyone. We've seen what happens when one species thinks it should control all others. Not rule, another voice interjected. This one came from a being that resembled a walking tree. Guide, facilitate, help us, all learn to work together. John thought about Rick Johnson and his crew, about all the humans who had died fighting the Vorthans, about the billions who had suffered under occupation. They had sacrificed everything to stop an empire, not to build a new one. We accept, he said finally. But this alliance will be different, no central control, no forced unity. Each species maintains its sovereignty. We work together because we choose to, not because we have to. Cheers erupted across the galactic communication system. Species that had been enemies under the Vorthan Empire were now celebrating together. After the call ended, John turned to Jack and Lisa. What about the Vorthon homeworlds? Most are struggling, Jack admitted. They've forgotten how to govern themselves. But we're sending aid and advisors, humans who understand what it's like to fight for freedom. Lisa smiled. In fact, many fourth hands are asking to join our colonies. They say they feel more at home with humans than with their own kind. After thousands of years under the Nexus, they've forgotten their own culture. There's something else, Jack said quietly. We've been analyzing the Nexus data we recovered. It kept records of everything. Every species conquered, every world enslaved, every culture destroyed. Billions of beings died because of that system. John felt the weight of that number. What do we do with that information? We've decided to destroy it, Lisa said. All records of the Vorthan Empire, all data on the Nexus, everything that could be used to recreate that system or to punish the Vorthan people for what the Nexus made them do. You would erase history? Jack nodded firmly. We would erase a nightmare. The Vorthans, as they were under the Nexus, are already gone. Let them build new histories, new cultures, new relationships with the galaxy, starting fresh. John considered this. Do the Vorthans know? They asked us to do it, Lisa said. They don't want to be reminded of what they were forced to do, and the species they conquered have mostly agreed. They want to heal, not hold grudges. A different message appeared on John's screen. Plans for a memorial on Earth, dedicated to all beings lost to the Nexus, human and alien alike. Right next to it, blueprints for an interspecies academy where young minds from across the galaxy could learn together. John looked at the memorial plans, then at the academy designs. You know what? I think we actually did it. Did what, sir? Jack asked. Turned a story about conquest into a story about liberation. They demanded we kneel, but we showed them how to stand up instead. 3 months later, the first class of students arrived at the Interspecies Academy on Earth. Humans, Vorthans, and beings from 100 different worlds learned together, played together, and built friendships that would span the galaxy. In hidden archives across Earth, the last records of the Vorthon Empire were systematically destroyed, not from fear or hatred, but from hope. Hope that the galaxy could write a better story, one where no species would ever again demand that another kneel. Above Earth, construction continued on the first joint human-Vorthan deep space exploration vessel, its name suggested by a young Vorthan student, Hope. The old war was over. The new era of cooperation had begun, and humanity had kept its promise. They had not just defeated an empire, they had freed one